What is up, people of the Star Wars universe and fellow Bad Batch members? Welcome to my recap, review, and breakdown of The Bad Batch, Star Wars The Bad Batch, Episode 2. Now, this is titled Cut and Run, and I quite enjoyed this episode. It was obviously a lot shorter than the first episode, which, you know, was obviously the big episode which set the scene for the series moving forward, and this episode was 30 minutes, and what I like to kind of think of this episode is a really smooth transition into the Empire, and the Empire's control of all kinds of systems, planets, how this is affecting people immediately after Order 66, and after all, this is one of, if not arguably the most attractive thing about this series, is that we are truly in the times of post-Order 66, and I feel like this episode pushed several little key aspects forward in the right direction, all while kind of building that world and the larger world up with all of the events of Star Wars at the time. So without wasting any more time, guys, let's get into this breakdown and review. All I'll ask from you guys is to go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it, and leave your thoughts down in the comments below. So let's start right at the beginning, and we pick up with the kind of question of, what are we going to do with her, Hunter? She is a child. And this episode honestly gives me a lot of, and I know some people are already out there saying this, whether Omega is the new Grogu, if you will, or I kind of look at Hunter and Omega as Siri and Geralt. I mean, I know he looks like Snake from Metal Gear Solid, but do you know what I mean? It's kind of like almost how Geralt was this reluctant father figure for Siri. If you know about The Witcher and how that works, then you already know what I mean, but if you don't, it's kind of this hesitant father relationship, which we can all predictably see them getting closer and closer and closer together, to the point of where we saw that this episode, where she was meant to go off with Cut's family, but then she ended up staying with the Bad Batch. I liked how they introduced her coming off the ship with her just dropping to her knees, feeling the dirt on the ground, because we can't forget that Omega's been insanely isolated. She's lived on Kamino her whole life. Obviously, she's a clone with accelerated aging, but think about it, she's never known real ground, so I like how this pushed forward the fact that she is really experiencing life for the first time outside the confines of the Kaminoans and her duties there. But we'll talk a bit more about Omega, because I really feel like there's a lot of theories going on about her in a minute, and we got little hints as to what this could mean for her during this episode. But who is this other clone they're finding, this deserter's location? Well, this was quite cool, because this clone has been hiding for years, and they're all sort of talking amongst themselves saying, we're kind of deserters now, because obviously if you're a clone, your inhibitor chip would dictate that you're with the Empire, but as we know, the thing that's unique about the Bad Batch, minus Crosshair, because we all know about Crosshair, is that their inhibitor chips were so defective in their defective state that it didn't respond to the Order 66 call. And now this clone turns out to be Lawquane. Now you may remember him, I believe it was from Clone Wars Season 2, because that is when his clone force was pretty battered, shall I say, by many droids, and they were getting run down, many clones were dying, and he deserted, got away, picked up his own life, and that's where he met Sue and her kids, and yeah, they've been living a fairly quiet life ever since then. But also in the events of Star Wars, in the history, he ran into Rex, those two got on for an episode, and like he never ended up reporting him, which he could have easily have done. And interestingly enough, we heard about Rex in this episode, who actually passed through Lawquane's, I don't know, house just the day before this episode. So you have to think that maybe we're going to see Rex, or at least that it's a good possibility. I do get the idea that, oh, Rex seems to be in everything, but at the same time, you know, I'm pretty sure fans would love to see the Bad Batch interact with Rex, especially right after where we saw him last at the end of Clone Wars Season 7. So that would be pretty cool. We had Wrecker doing Wrecker things, like walking through that trip wire. I do get it. Some people were finding him annoying. I don't think I felt that so far, which is surprising, because I do get what people mean. He's meant to be that kind of big brooding, kind of like, oh yeah, let's walk through this wire. Oh, bang. You know, do you know what I mean? It's a bit dumbed down, I suppose you could say. But so far, I quite like him. You can kind of obviously liken to him of like the Chewie of the original trilogy, or the Seb of Rebels. Do you know what I mean? The big muscle who is a bit more clumsier. So far, he hasn't annoyed me like a lot of people are saying. But I'd love to know your thoughts on Wrecker. What did you enjoy him this episode? I pretty much did. I mean, he had some cool moments, like pulling the clamp off the ship, knocking those three clone troopers' heads together. Yet again, it is kind of dummy, kind of a character approach. Now, we'd also learned about Rex telling Cut in the previous day about Order 66 and how the clone troopers are turning against the Jedi. I found it very interesting that they decided to inject that he was also going on about this behavioral implant that clones had. And Omega's just like, yeah, I know all about the inhibitor chips because that's how they modified clones' behavior. Now, this is when Hunter doesn't really know, obviously, how exactly it was done. He's aware that clones behave differently, but he didn't know it was down to this inhibitor chip in their head, even though the other clone was just like, well, yeah, how else did you think it was done? But I think this was very deliberately seeded here because we can't forget that I feel like this is all building towards the Crosshair kind of larger storyline. Obviously, we have Tarkin, who's kind of like the puppet master, but I feel like Crosshair is going to be his champion. And so I feel like I could be wrong. I don't want to say it's predictable, but I feel there's a element of predictability in this, in how eventually, I guess, they might neutralize the inhibitor chip in Crosshair's head. And just like I said in my episode 1 review, I can see this going or getting to a point of where Crosshair and his inhibitor chip is going to be kind of knocked out, and we're going to see the real Crosshair beneath the Order 66 dictatorship kind of orders. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm right there. I would love to know your predictions, but do you think this is going to kind of end, or not that's going to be the ultimate goal, but that will be one of them along the way, and that is a way to get Crosshair back? As the events of the episode unfold, Omega goes off with the other kids. Hunter explains how she's a defective clone to Cut as well. And this, yet again, highlights another seed. It's kind of subliminal, but it's very obvious when you're just reading between the lines. Cut says that the Kaminoans don't really create without a purpose. You all have one, just like Crosshair's ability to shoot insanely well, obviously Wrecker's insane strength. So he asks, what's hers? And that's when Hunter says it doesn't matter, she's just a kid. And it does matter, because there's a lot of theories going on at the minute, obviously, when it comes to Omega. I don't want to get too carried away with them. But once again, they are trying to tell the audience through this conversation between these two characters, she has a gift, you don't know what it is. What is it? Oh, it doesn't matter, but it is going to matter a lot as of when we see it. And I was hoping this episode would be it. I thought there's a lot of opportunities to kind of have that power moment, almost like a mini-series to Hunter's Geralt, of where she like unleashes her power, but we didn't see it. I thought maybe that would happen with the Nexu, or when they were getting away from the clones. She might use some inherent force ability maybe, and hold your horses. I'll get onto that in just a few moments, but yeah. We're going to have to wait and see what the Kaminoans really were trying to do with their last attempt. I would say this is their last attempt at their newest version of a clone, and that is Omega. More demonstrations of a freshly incorporated empire into all of the systems of the galaxy. I really do love seeing this. This is kind of, as I said, the main attraction of the series. Beyond the characters is the time setting. So they go into town, but they mention how the troops should be pulling their forces, not securing their posts, because the war is over, right? But as we know, the Empire doubles down. Like, this is all about control now, giving people chain codes. You literally have a scannable code that will show wherever, and like basically imagine a code in real life where you had to go through these little gates, almost like toll gates, right, in America or wherever you are, and it details where you've been at any time. That is a very, yeah, it's like you would have no privacy there. And also, if you have something to hide, even if you didn't do anything for a bad reason, we know what the Empire's like. If they want you and you have a chain code identifying you, then obviously, how are you going to get anywhere? Just like that one citizen that we saw. I appreciated seeing an alien trying to get on board, but the clones weren't letting him. Now, I wonder why he couldn't, or why he didn't have a chain code, or maybe why he didn't want to get a chain code. Maybe he's a spice runner, and they'll know about it if he identifies. I don't know, but that's the idea, right? We also learned that the Empire is seizing all ships. Now, that ship that they showed when that was being said, I'm not saying it is, but it did kind of remind me as a starfighter, or like a Jedi-class starfighter. I could be wrong. It probably isn't, but that would have been cool if, like, I don't know, they impounded like a nearby Jedi's ship who happened to be on this planet at the time the Order 66 was given. They would have shot that person, that Jedi, and then impounded the ship. So it's kind of cool to think, oh, that could be a Jedi ship up there. Hunter gets it explained to him that there's a new galactic policy. Every individual has a chain code, as I mentioned. That means your Republic credits and they're invalid. So you have to go and collect your chain code and also exchange a currency for Imperial credits, because Republic credits credits will be useless. We've seen moments like this, for example, in many properties, obviously, but one most recently with The Mandalorian. We have the Mando trying to go into Greef Karga, and, you know, Greef Karga's offering him a reward, but it's like Imperial credits, but obviously that's when they're transitioning to a new age of the New Republic. So Imperial credits are kind of on the out in the time setting of The Mandalorian. So you kind of get where they're going with that. I kind of all love like little world tidbits like that. Meanwhile, the kids are playing ball, if you will, or catch, yet again emphasizing the really naive in every probable angle you could possibly get Omega, because they throw the ball at her but she doesn't catch it. She doesn't really know what the point of this exercise is. So once again, I'm here for the journey of seeing this character grow. Obviously characters, or should I say kids, grow in of themselves anyway, experiencing new things in lives and everything, but this is like a unique case where we're seeing a character grow in every way you possibly could through being isolated previously. But this led to a very dodgy moment because they lose the ball beyond the fence, and it was very obvious they weren't supposed to go beyond the fence, but Omega goes beyond the fence, and that is when we see one of the native animals of the planet, or the wildlife, should I say, and it is a Nexu. Now, did you recognize it? Now, that is exactly the animal. I believe was that the very one that scratched Padme's back in Attack of the Clones. This is the same species, the Nexu, but yet again, I was hoping this would be a prime opportunity to see her, even if, like, considering whatever theories you have out there, if you think that the Kaminoans were trying to achieve a very base level force affinity connection in a clone, so they weren't manufacturing clones to the point of where they were star killer, like throwing starships everywhere, but just trying to achieve something with a new form of clone, like some kind of influence on battle, a slight battle meditation, or something like where maybe Omega could reach out to this Nexu like Ezra does to animals. Like, I was expecting to see maybe something low-key like that, but once again, nothing so far. But I would love to know your theories as to what her ability could be out there. I know we've already discussed this a little bit. We've seen her in the trailer with like this weird kind of bow, with the string of the bow being this almost like freaking vibro-bladey kind of lightsaber thing. So she's going to get a bit more rough and gruff, and as we expected, as she's going to grow with the Bad Batch. But what's her ability? Yet again, another Geralt and Ciri moment, or you could say initially the reluctant relationship that obviously we had from Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian to Grogu, the child. Hunter was kind of looking at her as if she was a soldier, saying, well, don't you get it? Like, you could have got killed, but she's such a noob that she didn't even consider all of these things, which is kind of putting things into perspective for Hunter, that she would be better off maybe with Cut's family, and this very much so paralleled the kind of episode where we had from The Mandalorian in the first season, where Mando was quite happy with the idea, or even it was a bittersweet thing at the same time. Just like what we have with Hunter here, there's an underlying sentimental connection, just like what Mando had with Grogu, with wanting to maybe leave him with the village at the end of that episode. Well, we have Hunter here maybe wanting to leave Omega to have a chance at a family with Cut, and wherever he goes off to in another system to live a peaceful village or farming life, but doesn't end up happening. But yeah, you can see the parallels. I want to know if you think that's a good or a bad thing, because I do feel like, as much as I'm enjoying it and I'm game to see where this goes, we have seen this kind of story beat and point be played in quite a few iterations of Star Wars material. Is that not so innovative for the Bad Batch series, or are you still game for it because it's obviously being shown in a unique setting, unique story, Order 66, a kid clone with God knows what ability going off with a bunch of other defective clones? I think personally that's enough for me to see yet again another iteration of a parental and kid relationship, but in a new setting. But I know some people still aren't happy with it, which is why I wanted to raise it. As Omega is starting to grow out of her very newbie world experience, we see that actually being symbolized through a physical change where she takes a little Kaminoan, I don't know, head bracelet, tiara thingy off, and her hairstyle subtly changes as well. And, you know, as you see her in the trailer more and more and more, we're going to see her getting, as I explained earlier, more rough and gruff. I guess more one of the Bad Batch rather than a little medical assistant. Omega is thrown even more into the deep end because they realized they needed some chain codes to get off, and we had Tech come up with a way to get these chain codes, which led to them leaving in the ship which Omega was on, on, and this was a very kind of risky mission because obviously they had to like steal some chain codes. We saw some little R2-D2 kind of hacking Star Wars kind of stuff going on. I'm trying to skim through this because there wasn't so much going on as much as there was at the same time. Long story short here, Omega has the chance to leave with Cut's family, but ends up going back to help Tech. Once again, I know I keep repeating this, I thought this would be a moment where she would try something. Very instinctually though, because I don't think maybe she even knows what her ability is, and that's going to be a way that it unfolds in this season. We're going to be like, it's going to manifest and everyone's going to witness it at the same time, as well as her own first experience with her own potential. And the episode just kind of ended in like, you don't have to get rid of me, I left Kamino with you, this is where I want to be. And Hunter's like, if this is where you want to be, then this is exactly where you will stay. And yeah, it just felt like, I don't want to call this a filler episode, because episodes like this still add a lot of context that bolster things forward for certain characters. For example, Omega and her journey in this episode, like literally they symbolized her changing physically as much as she is mentally. We have the world building, or should I say universe building at this point, of the Empire and its change into the Republic system, which is no longer effective really, and we're seeing that in real time. I know we've seen this before in other properties, should I say like Fallen Order maybe, but now we have an opportunity to explore it in, I don't know, literally an episodic format, which is really cool. And so far, I'm still being charmed, which is good, because as I said in my last review, I'm not a huge guy on animations. It's not that I dislike them, it's just that for me to be immersed in it, I don't think it's comparable to seeing physical expressions and emotions coming out of an actor on a TV show, a live action one. I know you can obviously get very emotive kind of characters in animes or Western animations, but I don't know why, I just can't lock into it. But I'm still really enjoying this, which is a really good thing. I feel like the Clone Wars was a bit too silly, kiddie for me personally, but I feel like as Star Wars animations go on, or while this is at a target audience for kids at the same time, they are really catering in for every age group, I feel, and that's what I prefer to see. But I would love to know what you thought of episode 2. I'm still very game with the Bad Batch, looking forward to see where things go. What do you think of Omega? Did you expect to see some kind of ability pop out this episode, or do you think that's going to come slowly but surely throughout the season? And do you agree that it will kind of end with potentially Crosshair having his inhibitor chip completely busted, which will make him a clone who can then think for himself and realize that they have turned against their own generals, the Jedi, people they served and blood, sweat, and tears kind of alongside each other. So that's why it's messed up. Whereas Crosshair is just like, they're defying the orders of the Emperor. You know, we don't want to see that. But I'm going to shut up now. Like this video if you did enjoy it, guys. Make sure you subscribe for more videos just like this. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and may the Force be with you always.